Okay, cool. So that's going, and I can see you guys in Twitch. Let me hit play so I can see it again and make sure I see all the comments coming up. Is that why I used the old Canon the other day? No, I used the Canon because I wanted to shoot with an 85, and I don't have a long lens. The longest lens I have for my Z system is the 24-70. So, and because I wanted to do kind of a tighter, like kind of headshot, and I didn't want to get too close, you know, because we were inside. Plus, every once in a while, I bust out that Canon, and I gotta tell you, it's a nice camera. It's different, of course. The Nikon is good as well. They're all good. It's all good. Yeah, so the way that, the way that I'm set up audio wise, maybe I'll do a video on this if people are interested. It's kind of I've got a USB mic because I definitely like that better than just plugging a lav in, which is what I know what a lot of people do. And I have that going into my Zoom recorder to get the best kind of audio, but then I'm pushing it through the Nikon. You know, so it's less ideal, but it's not terrible. It's fine. Okay, so cool. Let's do this. So as usual, we're gonna start off from scratch. This is a shoot. I think one of these videos already went live, and the other one I think goes live this week. It's with Farah. Let me share my screen here. So you know, as usual, we're going to use my Dribos to store everything. And let's go to 2020 to photo shoots, and we're gonna find the shoot. It's such, you can tell this is a weird year because look, there's only 35 shoots so far this year. I mean, we're halfway through the year, more than halfway through. This is it right here. I mean, normally when I need to work on something, I put it out here, so I'll just do that. So I have it there, and we're going to open it up in Capture One. It's going to tell me, do I want to upgrade? Because I keep forgetting to upgrade my Capture. Actually, every single time I go to do this, I see that I need to upgrade it, and then I'm like, well, I don't want to do it right before I go live. So, or I'm about to do a photo shoot. So I definitely need to, maybe when I'm done here is when I'll do it. All right, cool. So Capture One's open. Oh yeah, I know, I know, and I kind of want to leave it to Keith. I do want to reach out and be like, Keith, let me bother you about how I'm doing this. But I figured it out. It's definitely, it's a whole different world live streaming than it is recording. You know, because recording, you can just tweak it after the fact. When you're live streaming, you got to really make sure everything's lined up as best as possible. And then there's all these other, any delay can really throw it off. Even hiccups in the stream. So, which is one reason why, again, I'm streaming through the Sling now instead of putting all the burden on my computer to do it. Okay, so we have everything open. This was from, you know, as usual, I named the. So this is about a couple months ago. We shot this almost. And this is the first series is from the Exposing for a Proper Skin Tone, which already went live. And then the second series we were using high-speed sync, so we'll talk about that a little bit too. But we're in Capture One, if those of you that might be new to it. And what we're going to do to sort our images is we're going to select everything first. So that's a Command A. And once we have them all selected, there's not that many, so this will be a pretty short one, I guess. We're going to hit the number 3 to give them all 3 stars. So the way that I do this is I'm going to lower the star rating on the ones that I don't like, basically, thus eliminating the negatives. I find that's easier than looking for the good ones. Like, I just get rid of the ones that don't strike me as good, and then all that I have left is ones I like. So I'm going to come over to my search bar over here, and I'm going to just put in 3 stars or higher. And so, for instance, this is just a frame I just tested the light and the space. We can see that it's very, very dark. Not quite a black frame, I don't think. In fact, I even have the exposure turned up a little bit there. So let me go back. Not quite a black frame, but it's pretty black. I mean, I guess, yeah, it's pretty black. But that's where I started anyways, exposure-wise. So I'm going to hit 2 next to that one to get rid of it, because obviously I don't need a black frame. And that one as well. And then we get into our first exposure. Okay. All right, so I'm assuming that everything's still going, so let me know if you have any questions. For some reason in this view, I can't see that I'm still, I guess I see myself. Okay. All right, right out of the bat, the exposure is a bit dark. Though I kind of like her attitude here. And basically, we're just setting stuff up. I'm not sure. Let's see. I'm trying to remember what happened. This was now a long time ago. F8, so that's definitely not available. That's definitely got to be with the flash. Actually, I could go like this to see too. For whatever reason, it really underexposed it, which is not uncommon. I mean, it does happen, right? She's against a white wall. You know, these are the types of things. So, you know, even though I kind of like her attitude here, I think that it's too dark. And even if we were to come in, like, look at my curve. Like, look at all that empty space on this side. My histogram. Let's see. Let me go down to my levels, which is what I normally mess with first, and just drag it across. I mean, there's a decent amount of dynamic range in this camera. The problem is you start doing this and everything just starts to get really flat. So I definitely don't recommend trying to save an image if the exposure is bad. This is one reason why we try to get it as good as possible in the camera. So that being the case, boop, get rid of that. Then here we go. This is a much nicer exposure. I adjusted the white balance a bit at 5600. For some reason, the other one was higher. I came in and actually, what did I shoot this with? I'm guessing I shot with a Nikon. Huh. There is a way to find depth. Let me go here. Yep. Nikon Z2470. Okay. Yep. Just making sure. I know I shot a few things with the Canon, but it didn't look Canon to me. Canons tend to actually go brighter than they do darker, so you end up with brighter images. All right, so here we go. It doesn't look like it did anything, does this? But that looks pretty good. Even though I like it right out of the bat, I'm going to do my normal stuff, which is Massachusetts, my home state. How you doing? This looks pretty good. I will do my normal. Let's make sure we're sharp here. There we go. I'll do my normal kind of tweak that I do just to see what it looks like, because I can see over here in my levels that I got a lot of space over in the white. I feel like that's probably because it's a light colored wall, but let's see. Oh, okay. Skin tone wise, that looks good. Oh, yeah, no, that helps. It dragged the mids over a little bit. I'm just going to see. Yeah, I don't quite like them as far as I had them. I'm going to drag it back a little bit to keep her skin tone better. See the skin there? Like, if you look at the overall exposure, you can just mostly watching her face. That's what's really important. I mean, this is a portrait. I'll go a little darker. And then I'm just going to grab my blacks. I always grab the blacks over a little bit whenever I tweak the lights. It just, if you don't do that, you oftentimes end up with images that are too flat. Yeah, there we go. So even though I liked it right out of the bat, that's actually much cleaner. Right, look, that's nice and clean. But still, I'm looking at my numbers up here. You know, I'm close. You know, detail is very much lacking in this lighter colored top that she's wearing, but it's enough that you know, I'd be nervous about that if like I was losing detail in like the knots and the ties that are on her shirt. Because I'm not, and you can see the shape of the shirt, you know, I'm not like, if I was losing detail here, like we can totally see it. It's not like a big white. So I'm not gonna, excuse me, I'm not gonna worry about that as far as exposure wise. But so I think it looks good. And there we go. That's just the one light. If I remember right. Isn't that the place? Oh wait. Yeah. That is the place where they toss tea in the water, yeah. I mean, how else would you make tea, really, when it comes down to it? All right, so I'm going to hit Command-Shift-C to copy what I just did, just so I have it. And I'm going to go on to the next one, which clearly I'm testing the backlight there. So, I mean, obviously this image is not one I'm going to keep. Hit 2 next to that. Now I have both of them going. I mean, in theory, the front light should be the same, so this adjustment might be perfect. So Shift-Command-Paste. But, and you know, it looks good on her. What I'm going to do is just make sure the light that I added doesn't look funny now. So I'm not like blowing out too much the shoulders or anything down there. No. No, it looks great. Definitely have detail and all that. Again, up here we're getting kind of bright, but it's well within the limits of what I would want. I definitely wouldn't want to go in there and lighten that. I just think it would look weird if I flattened it. It wouldn't look natural. So that looks good. shirt is doing some heavy lifting in the shadow under her chin. Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I think that part of the reason why we're not getting a lot of shadow in here is because I'm using a kind of a 3-foot octa in this, and it's pretty flat. You know, it's not like really up above her. It's kind of coming almost from the side. But the shirt definitely helps. Sure, everything reflects light, you know. You can see the shadow pattern. Like if you look at the shadow, like you can see under her lips here, but if you look like around her nose, you see how a lot of the shadow is to one side, not under. That's because the light, and also you can see where the light is, right? It's not above her, it's like to the side here. So I think that's part of the reason why. Like this shadow is being created because her lip is overhanging, right? We're three-dimensional as people, right? So what's happening is, yeah, the shirt is definitely helping, but it's not a huge thing. Like if I took this light and then put it like right above her, like, can you see? Yeah, like here, like typical beauty shot, it would be shadowy. It's because it's more flat is the reason why. That's one of the reasons anyways. And you know, of course, when you're shooting a portrait this far back and it's hard to add a fill as far as a reflector board, then that's one way to handle it, is just use a large light source. Okay, so that looks good. All right, same thing. And of course, I brought up the exposure too. We can see in the exposure I shot that the shadow's a little bit deeper here. All right, we'll go like this. We'll paste it again. I think we're good. I don't really love that expression, so I'll get rid of that one. Okay, here we're, if you saw this video, we're messing around with adding gels and such. So here I added a warming gel to the front light, I believe at this point. Probably, that makes sense. It darkened it because I clearly didn't do enough compensation. And in addition to that, I didn't particularly like the colorization, but let's see. If you liked this shot, but you didn't love that you had done that with the colorization, what we can do, although this is not the ideal situation, we can come in here and actually mess with our white balance. Because I used a CTO gel. This is one reason why on skin, it can be nice to use a CTO. I did actually say in the video, and I do actually say that on skin tone, you kind of typically want to use cosmetic gels because they look nicer. Like CTO can end up looking very like orange on people depending on their skin tone. But the good thing about CTO is that if in the end you did too much or whatever, it's easy to correct away because it's literally color temperature, right? So we can come in and bring our color temperature down to get our skin tone back where it was. The only issue with it is that it's also going to affect all the other light. So everything's going to get cooler when we do that. So we can do that. And also, this is a smidge on the dark side because, again, I didn't compensate enough. So I'm going to see if... Why is this other layer so close up? Let's see. I'm going to move this over a bit more. I think this one is just too... Yeah. I'm just not feeling it. I'm not in love with the expression either. It's okay, but... So we'll just kill that one. All right, here I think we found a better exposure, but still with the warming gel. So now we might actually be able to recover better, right? If you're doing too much, like that's what I found. Like if you're editing and you have to do a lot of things, fix the color and the exposure and the thing, then that's when the images start looking like they just need way too much work for me to deal with. If you just got to fix one thing, like here, maybe it's too warm for me, but the exposure's right. Now it's a little bit easier for me to come in here and tweak my color. So that is what I will do. Although I don't think it's that bad. I'm just going to warm it a little bit. Just a smidge. By the way, and you may see that I do this wiggle thing. I do this a lot to kind of get an eye, because I feel like if you just move stuff, sometimes it's hard to really get a feel for it. So I'll always go down to where I think it's good, further than I think it's good, and I'll go back further, and I'll come back until my eye kind of settles somewhere naturally, where I think it's good. And then from there, I'll kind of look at it, and that looks pretty good. I'm at 46 now. I'm just going to make it 47. Yeah, that looks good. Come up here. Yeah, that's nice. So I fixed, you know, it's warmer than without a gel, but it's not as we can see here. What just happened? It's warmer than without the gel. What did I just do? It's warmer than without the gel. Let me click on the right images. It's definitely warmer and richer than without the gel, but it's not so warm as it was if I did nothing, which is like this one, right? This is straight out of with the gel. So really what I should have used, I think I used a quarter. What I probably should use like an eighth or even a 16th. Probably a 16th would have been good. That's why you want to have lots of cuts. I don't have so many as I used to have. because I don't use as many CTOs for warming skin. But when I did a lot of skin warming with CTOs, I would have lots of different cuts because you can stack them, right? So I can buy yourself a big 20 by 24 sheet of a 16th, and then you can just stack them to create deeper color. From the UK, welcome. The wall is surrounded to the damage on the wall. Yeah, that's a classic studio. That mark on that wall has been there forever, and it's a Daniel signature. I leave it in a lot of my shots. If you don't like it, you take it away. I mean, that's 5 seconds. Can I use a layer for the background? Oh, you mean to mix the colors? You could cut her out and do that for sure. I mean, if you really wanted the tweak I was doing, and you really like that image, and then the background just became too blue or whatever, you could go ahead and mask her out. Yeah, I mean, it's not something that I would do, but it's certainly possible. You know, I might fix the thing on the wall, though. You know, I might fix the thing on the wall, which is what I was just talking about, this mark down here. If this really bothered you, I mean, again, it's 2 seconds to... Let's make a new layer. Let's see. I think at this point I always do a clone, and then I never like it, but I'll do a clone. I feel like heal is so much better in this. But let's see if I do a clone layer and just kind of paint away that line. It's not perfect. Probably should have blown it up more before I did that. Yeah, let's try that. That's not bad. I mean, if you didn't know it was there, that's good enough. But I'm not going to worry too much about that, though. And I'm not 100% sure I was on a tripod, so I don't want to copy that part of it because I don't want to start pasting that all over the place. Did I already do a quick version for the stills for the video? No, I don't know. In the video, I didn't. I actually went back and looked because I was curious about that, to be honest. And no, I didn't. In the video, I just used them straight out of camera. You know, a lot of times in my videos, I'm not going to show you a processed image because I'm showing you the lighting technique. I feel like the idea of somebody teaching lighting and then showing a fully processed image with a lot of changes, not that there's a lot here, but it's just kind of like, that doesn't make sense. So no, I actually didn't. I actually just picked ones that I thought were really good out of the camera. I think with the video thumbnail, I used one with like kind of the flatter light, the darker light. And then I think I used that one, maybe. So I just, you know, before I tweaked it. And it was fine. I mean, I did not like it that way. That's a good question, though. Sometimes I do, though. I mean, if you know, occasionally in the video, if you might see me put a finished image up, and usually that's just like at the end if I'm trying to show something, or just because I've already done this. But usually I don't do that. Okay, so I like this one. So I'm going to Shift-Command, copy, and I'm going to paste. Yeah, so I like those settings. So, you know, in the end, I think when I made the video and then I shot this, because, of course, I was like, that's too warm. I just took the gel off after a few shots. But, you know, with this tweak, so like I said, a less strong gel would have probably been the solution here. Let's see. So what you would do, just to answer about the layer question, I mean, I'm not going to do it because it will take too long. It's really involved for what we're doing here. But if I was going to do it in Capture One, which I probably wouldn't, I'd probably do it in Photoshop, you could put a layer, you could just put a, probably a filled layer is how I would do it. So what you do is you put a filled layer on there, and then you would take your tool and you would erase or whatever, you know, it's just that, or you could do it the other way. Put an empty layer and then draw in, basically select your subject. And then once you've done that, well, I guess you do the opposite. You would erase. So I did do it the right way. If you're going to make a change to the background, you would, you know, now I would select my Let's see if I can do this. I got to switch this to the eraser, right? That's the eraser there. Yeah. So I'm on the right layer. So yeah, I would just come in and like, I mean, obviously I'm not doing this very precisely, but you would basically erase your subject. You know, you'd use a smaller tool clearly and do all the edges properly. And you can do, there's like an edge setting where it'll help you. So when you're grabbing the edges, it's a little bit better. But you would basically go through like this. I mean, obviously I would cut around the chair. I'm doing it very fast. Let's show you how you would do it. So basically, you'd select your subject out, so that way you're only selected. I mean, you remove your subject from the selection, I guess is the proper way to say it. So that we are looking at only the background, as far as being selected. And then, once we do that, then we can make any adjustment we want on this layer. We'll just go back and do that same adjustment, basically. I'll just do the color adjustment. Let's see. And we can tweak our white balance and just, obviously you would have to do it tighter. But you can totally do that. I mean, you can definitely do that. I could be like, oh, now the background's orange. Or whatever color it would be, But clearly select it better. But like I said, I would do it in Photoshop because I just feel like I'm better at doing it in Photoshop. It's not impossible to do in Capture One. And in fact, people that are good at Capture One can probably do it pretty quickly. I think it would be kind of boring to watch me for an hour with my face like this at the screen trying to get it. Select those things, so I'm not going to do that. So we'll just kill that. Let's see. We'll click on the layer and we'll just hit delete. Cool. Yeah, good question though. So if that was what you're asking. All right, so we fixed the background for you. Went over the layer idea. Let's go on to our next image. So here we are. Let's go down to the next one. We are going to, again, paste our setting. And, again, to answer the question that I get a lot. So in this case, again, I've worked with Farrah a bunch. We haven't shot that many pictures so in this setup. So I'm not going to be, like, how many am I going to give her? Anyone that I think is okay or that I think she'll like is what I will give her. I'm not going to hold back on... Oh, you know what we did here? Hold on a second. Well, it doesn't matter. That's fine. I did end up copying the layer with the adjustment. You see it's not perfectly lined up in every one. Because it was either not on a tripod or I was moving a bit. So a lot of times when I'm on a tripod, I'm not fully locked down. So I can move around. It's really more just for stabilization. Okay, so that's good. I'm applying these same settings again. All right, so... I don't know what happened here. I guess it was probably showcasing something. We're going to remove this image because it's nothing. And we're back. Or maybe I just shot too fast and the light didn't go. I do that sometimes. I mean, a 3-foot octa from a distance shooting at f8 with gels on it, I was probably pretty much maxed out. So, cameras can shoot much faster than the lens can recycle at full power. Yeah, mask layer and blending in the background. Yeah, you could definitely. It's not as powerful for that as you can with Photoshop. Like if you're gonna do actual layer stuff with like masking and stuff, and I would do that in Photoshop. I don't particularly think that. I mean, Capture One can do stuff like that, but it's really not as powerful as Photoshop for that. Unfortunately, I lament that every week because I would love to not have to have pay for a Photoshop / Adobe subscription every year, but I found that you can't. If you do more involved retouching, especially with blending backgrounds and stuff, you really want to probably use Photoshop for that. Okay, so these are fine. Just very serious here. Okay, something went on here. Now I took the gel off. I think I shot a few and then I looked and I was like, womp womp. So I applied those same settings and clearly it's too blue. She's blue. All the other settings aren't really working. So I'm going to start this one from scratch. I'm going to hit Command R. That'll reset it. And let's look at this one as a brand new image. Get back down. So when I'm looking at a brand new image like this, I'm going to again go over to generally my personal favorite thing to do is to use the levels. So I'm going to go and I can see the big gap here. So I'm going to grab my levels on the light side. I'm going to drag it over. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm a little cautious here. I'm definitely blowing out here. Like this is loss of detail, but it's also a loss of detail in an area that I don't care about the detail. So for me, I'm not worried about that. Let's see. I will tweak my mids though, because I feel like that needs a little bit. And relax. I do have a feeling that I'm gonna, which I don't often do or that often, but I might actually jump into the actual exposure slider here. I don't want to add any more contrast. I think it's where I want it to be, but the whole thing needs to smidge dark. So I'm just going to grab my exposure slider. I always do the exposure slider after I do everything else. So that's the last thing I do. I don't exposure slider first, then do the levels. But you can see now that I've done that, now it looks flat again. So I'm actually going to grab my blacks over and tweak my mids a little bit to get it where I like it. You know, I want, as I talked about before, I want my highlights to be bright and I want my darks to be dark. That's going to give me three-dimensionality, right? If this is all even, like I see people go in and they, you know, apply smoothing and stuff to like this to make it the same as that, and this, the whole face will just look unnatural and smooth. You know, this is the natural way that a face looks. It's three-dimensional. It has shadow. It has texture. So for me, I leave that. I don't mess with that. In fact, if anything, I amplify it. I think actually the saturation is good too. Sometimes when you start doing a lot of tweaking, like this is a pretty heavy tweak for me, I will go into my saturation and lower it slightly, but I think it actually looks good like this, but let me just see. Yeah, just I took -2 off of it. Not a lot, just a little bit. Yeah, that looks good. It's very natural. It's what she looks like, you know, and she looks good. So no reason for me to create something fake. I'll take this away again for you guys because you didn't like that before. So we'll do that one more time. I'll do it better this time because I'll zoom into it properly. So to get rid of this, again, if you didn't like it, if you didn't like the Daniel signature floor, you create a layer. I'll do a healing layer this time. I'm going to right click here. I'm going to say new heal layer rather. Make sure I'm on the layer. Then I'm going to grab my paintbrush, which is currently set at eraser, so I'll switch to paintbrush. And I'm going to paint in the area that I want healed. Like that. It's going to pick a spot. It's always wrong. Oh, nope. That's not what I'm going to do. See what happens when you yell at. I'm going to move my spot to a more appropriate area. That looks pretty good. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's go here. There we go. That's a better job than the first time, right? So if for instance you weren't on a tripod and you didn't want to keep copying that healing thing there, what you could do, oh, that's actually the last frame. What you could do is instead of just copying all the adjustments, you can just copy some of them. So to copy all the adjustments, you're going to go, I'm just trying to see if you can see it here because I always do it with the keyboard. Yeah, so what you do is you just Shift Command C, and that'll copy everything, right? But let's say, for instance, we had, you know, it was a different framing, we didn't need that clone tool, whatever. What you could do is, well, you could either turn it off and copy, or you could go up here and you go to adjustments, copy adjustments. Oh, and you go copy, sorry, copy and apply, and it will give you the a list of everything that's done, and you can choose. I would just unclick that and then say copy. And now when I apply it somewhere else, so let's say I go up to this one. Well, this one already has it, but let's say I go to this one. Well, here, I'll just do this. I'll go back to the one I did from originally, and I will reset that, and then I'll just apply the adjustments. And you see everything came except for that touch, that retouch of the wall. So now that's gone. All my beautiful work on that. I just Command Z and went back, because obviously I want the wall to be retouched since I took all the effort to do it for you guys. Why did the exposure last? Oh, you started with Capture One 3 weeks ago? That's awesome. I mean, there is so much involved in Capture One. And I will say that I'm kind of... these are really fun on Sunday for me because they force me to use Capture One sometimes in ways that I wouldn't because people ask questions and I try stuff. Because I really treat Capture One like I always have, which is probably not doing a bit of a disservice to them because I use it mostly just for capture. Because I love the way that it handles the files. You know, I like the way that it operates when you're actually on the job shooting and doing quick tweaks and cropping and stuff like that. If I'm going to really involve myself in like a deeper retouch, I almost always just go to Photoshop. Because again, that's how I've always done it. But you can definitely do a lot of different things in Capture One. it really, and you can essentially do adjustment layers, like if you want to do like color and stuff by just dropping layers on top. It's just not the same as, I mean, in my mind, it's not exactly the same as Photoshop, so I use Photoshop for that. But Capture One is a great tool. You know, when you're shooting tethered and such, and dealing with this type of project. And like, what I would do is like, let's say this was for a client. I mean, this was for an Adorama video, so I guess that was the client. And let's say that, and in the end, she liked this photo, but then she was like, "Oh, you know what though? I really like this, but I don't like that thing on the wall," which I already took care of. And let's say she's like, "Oh, you know what? I'm not sure that I don't know. I'm looking for something. She's flawless, so I can't find anything." Let's find something. Let's say she's like, "Oh, you know, I don't like how my hair curls right here," or something, you know, silly like that that people say when they ask about their pictures. I could, if I was gonna retouch that, I would do it in Photoshop. And I certainly would not do it without being asked to do it, because I feel like just making massive amounts of effort into retouching images that somebody may not use is just not, you know, not what my time is for. So I don't do any kind of like heavy retouching unless I'm asked to do it, or if I want to do it myself for an image I'm going to use, which I don't do a lot of retouching. I mean, I'm just like heavy duty. I do editing and tweaking mostly, which is what we're doing here. But yeah, so that was that. If you haven't seen that video, that's on getting, I mean, I suppose the reason why there's not that many images and we didn't do much to it is because the video was very specifically about trying to get the skin tone the way you want it while you're shooting, which is pretty much what we achieved there. Why do exposure last? Well, because exposure is one of those things that affects everything. You know, meaning it affects all your parts of your histogram. Whereas the levels are very specific. So I want to do my overall tweak first to get it to where I want it, because I just think it works better. I mean, we could do it the opposite way. Let's take one, just for good measure. So let's say I came here, I did it the other way. So let's say I'm looking at this one, I'm like, oh, it's dark. And I move it up to where I think it kind of looks good. So what we'll see here is that, of course, obviously it's flat, because we're going to tweak it now. But then when I start adjusting this stuff, to where I think it looks pretty good, the overall image just feels more flat to me. I mean, it just, well, let's see if I'm wrong. I'll put the old settings in. Yeah, see the difference? Let's see if I can actually step back. I should have made a copy of it. It's minor, but it's there, you know? And to me, that's what makes a difference. Like that little bit of extra kind of contrast and punchiness that you get by doing the other stuff first. Plus, most of the time, I don't need to do the exposure. Like the exposure is kind of a last ditch. Like I pushed it far enough before I mess with it. So that's why. I mean, I just I feel like doing exposure last just makes more sense for how I operate. But that is a good question, though. Also, it comes down to how you're taught. You know, like when I took Capture One courses, they say to, in fact, if you take the official Capture One courses, they generally say to stay away from this area unless you really need to, which is actually how I mostly do stuff. They mostly say you're better off tweaking in other places. This is really, you know, savior. Also, the other time where I'll use exposure, so an exception would be, let's say, for instance, I was nervous about the exposure level of her shirt here. Let's say, because it's pretty close, right? We're losing detail here. Let's say I was nervous about that. What I might do is actually shoot the whole thing a bit darker to start off with. Like basically, and obviously I can't do that because we're not physically shooting right now, but I would get everything the way I like it, but then I'd be like, okay, I'm going to expose darker, and I know that I'm going to push my exposure up. Like I would be like, all right, I'm going to give myself, let's say that I shot it more like that, you know, down like a third of a stop, let's say. Go down to, let's say, I probably didn't do it that far, but let's say I'm shooting it here, and then I'm making this adjustment as I'm shooting up to the proper brightness so that it looks good to the client, but that I know I have that detail if I need it, you know. If I need it to come back, it's there. I'm not risking it. This is especially true on cameras that don't have very good dynamic ranges. Like if you're using an older camera and your dynamic range is not great, that's a good thing to do. Like you can basically underexpose a smidge, because usually most cameras have more dynamic range in the shadows. That was the first place where all the camera manufacturers went. They were all like, well, look, you can shoot in the dark and all this information in the shadows. So a lot of times the highlights blow out much, much faster than Layers can't be applied to the variant they were copied from. Okay. That makes sense. That's actually really funny. I guess that makes sense. You can't apply layers to... There we go. All right. Can't apply layers to something that you copied it from. So you can't apply the layer to the layer that's already the layer. Cool, cool, cool. Just stop studying art history. Oh, man. That's really interesting. Art history is such an interesting subject. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I almost did a minor in art history, so I was really liking it. But because I started taking the classes kind of late in my college career, I would have had to stay an extra year. I regretted like taking other classes that weren't part of that. Like once I got into it, but then I was just like, I'm not gonna stay in college an extra year. So yeah, art history is super interesting though. Huh. Let's see. By myself doing particular adjustments before universal ones lately. Yeah, yeah. I mean that's why yeah. I'm also I live for the levels. Well, you know, and what's funny is the way I used to. I mean, I don't even remember if I could do it. maybe I'll bust out Lightroom one week and we'll do a little comparison. I used to do things a little different in Lightroom because I had a different way of processing, and I would actually lower the exposure almost always before I did all my tweaking, and then I'd bring it back. It was just the way I did it. I don't know why. It's just it worked for the way I did it. So in that case, I did it, but it was more like a in order to be able to see the image differently, I did it, but not for an actual adjustment. Okay, so this video is the one that's going to come out this week, I believe, which is we use high-speed sync, right? So I wanted to kind of show like how we'd use high-speed sync. So the goal here is to produce basically images with and without high-speed sync that look the same, because that's the idea, right? Except for the depth of field, of course. Or I mean, should say except for the shutter speed, which should be different. So you know, clearly this was just a test shot to show the shallow depth of field. At a 500th of a second, this is high-speed sync, clearly. You know, I'm not going to keep this shot, mostly because there's a flag in the back. I mean, we're literally just doing a test shot. So we'll hit 2 there. All right. So now we're back. I went to 1,000th of a second. So here I'm playing around, right? That was 500. This is 1,000. This is also 1,000. I guess. Oh, I added another light, I guess. So I'm not. You know, these are all test shots. I'm not keeping any of them. 1,000 again with I moved the light to this side, which is I think is where I ended up keeping it. So now you see the black frames. That means I'm about to start, right? That's usually how this works. It's like, all right, so I'm getting ready to actually shoot now. So so sometimes you'll see this in my shoots if I keep them, whereas like I will literally just do some test frames before I get everything in place. Like why spend a bunch of time getting everything set up if you're not going to end up liking the results? So now we're ready. So we get rid of these 2 black frames and we're doing the video. So here I'm talking about the window because that's how you would expose, right? If you want to get the windows a certain way, you're going to want to set the windows up first. So that's what I did here. This is now 6/40th of a second at 1.8. Again, I'm just establishing the windows, and then we bring our light in. You know, this is now high-speed sync. So, and you'll watch the video to get all that information. But let's see if we want to keep any of these. I think this is okay. It looks a little dark to me, which is not uncommon for high-speed sync, actually. A lot of times the high-speed sync, it's just a little bit... And again, I'm not going to grab my exposure slider, even though it's dark. I want to come over. I want to build dimensionality. So I'm going to always grab my light slider first. That's pretty much universal. Because you can see, like, when I do this, like, there it is to start. If I just drag the light over, see how she starts to pop? Because the highlights are coming towards you. That's what's going to happen. That's why people you'll usually give that very generic statement. The brightest thing in your picture is where people look. Although I would say in the last setup that wasn't the truth because you commented how you saw the thing on the ground. That was black. Or the wall, I should say. But bright does bring things closer to you. That's what you learn in art history, right? Right. So that's how we paint. That's how we sculpt with light. Light brings things closer to you. Dark pushes things back to the eye in a 2-dimensional object. So by pushing, having the lightness of the body closest to you, it's going to and then fall back into dark. It's going to move her forward, and by having, of course, a light background, it actually separates her in your mind. Obviously, it's not actually separated because it is a flat subject. Right, so you would use, so basically, I mean, still watch the Adorama video, I need the views, but I'll explain it. So the thing with high-speed sync is people, in my opinion, overuse it. um, the whole point of it is that it allows you to use a faster shutter speed than you normally would be allowed to. And the reason why you'd want to use a faster shutter speed is so you can open up your lens and have a wider aperture. That's really the key, right? Like, it's easy enough for me to shoot at, like, whatever the equipment, well, we saw. I could have shot at, well, I'll tell you right now, so 640 at 1.8. So if I was 200th of a second, which would be my normal shutter speed for this camera, you're looking at, a little bit less than, right around 2 stops, which means I would have to shoot at about f4. So if I was happy to shoot at f4 for the depth of field, I could shoot at my normal sync speed and be good. And that's the smarter thing to do in most cases, because high-speed sync puts a lot of stress on your equipment because it's pulsing the flashes. So I wouldn't use high-speed sync unless you need it, right? It's still putting out the same amount of light. I think people sometimes think that high-speed sync is allowing you to, like, cheat, but it's not. You still only have the same amount of light. It's because, in fact, sometimes it's less light in a certain way. So it's not like you can go out with the speed light and be like, well, I'll just put it on high-speed sync so I can shoot with the, at 2,000 of a second and make it dark outside. That won't work because it's not putting out enough light. So it's really, if I'm using it in the studio or any time, it's because I want a more shallow depth of field, and I can't do that with my normal sync speed. So a lot of times you do it outside. People want shallow depth of field outside, which is, I don't know, it's odd to me sometimes, but whatever. I actually kind of like the deeper depth of field outside, unless it's a busy street or something, obviously, and you want to shallow. So I just did it in here to show an example. But yes, yeah. Anyways, we're making the more three-dimensional. I pulled her forward. We do need to be careful here because she's facing into this light, and also because of the angle of incidence towards the camera, that I could actually blow out her nose if I hit it with too much light. Like you can see these numbers, I'm really high here. There's detail, so I'm fine, but it is actually kind of hot. So I may be a little bit less, I may be hesitant, right, to pull this as far as I want to. But I'm still going to pull it up because I can, in theory, still grab my highlight recovery and yoink that down a little bit. Yeah, see how nice that is? If I just didn't give it as much, so if I just didn't give it as much levels so that the highlight doesn't blow out, then the rest of the lights also would not be as bright as I want them to be. So this is why we use highlight recovery, right? We're basically going to bring back just the brightest of the brights. I'm not bringing back the whites, I'm bringing back just the highlights. So that's what I'm doing there. So I'm bringing that over. That looks pretty good insofar as not blowing her out. I will now grab my mid slider just to see if it's worthwhile. See, if I drag it too far, the whole thing starts to get too flat. So I'm just going to do a little tweak. And again, I'm going to always grab my darks whenever I adjust my lights. Just a little smidge. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Good. And again, if you, as a final tweak, you could grab the exposure, but I don't think I need to. I think this looks pretty good the way it is. Saturation looks good. Everything looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this. It's not my favorite shot, but this is also the first shot, so I won't be too picky yet. I'm going to copy these specs as it would be. Yeah, I immediately got a better shot. Like, I immediately like the next one better, so I'm just going to get rid of that one. I apply the same settings. It looks good. Yeah, still good. What's happening here? This is the exact same exposure. Of course, we're shooting with natural light. So, I'm using flash, but because the windows are behind her, the exposure is probably going to shift slightly as we go through this. So I'm gonna watch it. So we shoot a couple like this, I guess. It looks like what we did. I feel like that looks a little awkward. I'll get rid of that one. This one's better. This is good. I like this. I'm actually going to come in here and bring my darks in a little bit more. I think I want to see if I can get a little more contrast. Yeah, I like that. Just a smidge. I'm actually doing a little bit more higher contrast. I mean, it's a lit shot, so I feel like it's okay to have a little bit more contrast. I love the division here because she has that nice strong jawline and also the cheekbone. So I'm going to amplify that by bringing my shadows darker, which is what I did there. Copy this. Come in. That's a good smile. That's the in-between. I always like those for myself, so I'll keep that. Again, I'm just applying the same settings. Yeah, see, once again, I think the room lights probably come up a little bit. I'm going to grab these darks. I think I'm going to grab my mids as well. See if I can get the whole thing a little darker. Yeah, see, that's a little nicer. I'm going to keep my highlights where they are as long as they don't blow out because we're getting close here, but I think we're okay. Let me kind of bring a little bit more highlight recovery in. Yeah, that's good. Just flatten it. I don't want to lower my highlights if I can avoid it, because they're what's giving me that dimension. Good. Good. I think I added a second light here. Yes, I did. Actually, looks like I did it there. Actually, I added it right there. We can see it here. I'm adjusting the power. You can see the second light. Like, you might think that's the window, but that's actually a second light. Because we can see that I kept the same, more or less the same settings. It's getting darker outside. I did switch to 400th of a second, so there's no way at 400th of a second that this is making that bright of a highlight on her. That's clearly another light. But it's subtle, which is what we want to do. Retrospectively blowing. Yeah, I guess so. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Okay, now we're a bit dark here. Interestingly enough, oh, no. Oh, it looks like I did tweak this one. Looks like I tweaked this one. Because I can see here, this is slid over. Unless I just did that. Did I just do that? Huh, either way, I'm just going to do it again. Oh, you know what I did here? I'm pretty sure, because I was in that mood. I think I added a filter. I added a gel. Yeah, I definitely did. Or I changed the white balance. I think I just added a gel. Yeah, 65. Oh, no. Oh, yeah, no, I know. I tweaked the white balance. I think I was just trying to get a bit of a warmer feel for some reason. Interesting. Oop. Okay, bring that back down. Who knows what I was thinking in that moment. I was probably trying something to see if I wanted to add a gel. Okay, so now we're there, and let me now apply my other settings. Ooh, okay, no, that's a bit much. So sometimes, even though they're kind of similar, the same settings don't always work. She looks overall a bit dark here. So I'm actually going to, I got to watch those highlights. So I think I'm going to grab my mids. Just a smidge. And again, I'm doing that thing, I'm just going back and forth. And darks. And I may actually jump up here and grab that exposure slider smidge. Nope. I like it in the middle. It really is. It's very universal. So, yeah, skin tone's good. That shine on the lips is nice. You get the nice highlight on her chin. Yeah, all the skin tone looks good. Yeah, that looks nice. Good. All right. So we're going to grab that. Again, Shift-Command-C to copy. Yeah, same thing. And also, as mentioned before, if you want, if you're more of a mouse person, you can actually, I have them up here as well, so I can paste the settings there. So those look good. Yeah, this is looking good. Oop. Okay, so here I've actually dropped back down into normal sync. I think it's getting darker. It was basically getting darker as we were progressing. So, actually, let me roll back here. So that's the shot, right? I'm going to put my effects on there. I think this is actually now maybe a little bit too bright. Just by a smidge. Yeah. Of course, the more daylight that gets in, the brighter the space becomes as well. See how this whole thing's a little bit flatter. That's probably because a little bit of daylight's probably creeping in. Yeah, looks pretty good. Cool. And obviously it has to do with the angle of we talked about this before. Like when you're looking at something, like for instance, this softbox in front of me, depending on the angle of your subject to the light, right, it matters. So if I take my, do this here so I can see myself. So if I take my hand and I put it flat to the camera, it looks one way, but when I put it up towards the light, it looks brighter because clearly more light is reflecting. Light moves It's kind of like if you think about a mirror, right? Like the way things hit a mirror, you can see things at angles. So if I go like this, it's not getting as much of the light. When I go like that, it's getting more light. The face is the same way. So if the face goes up into the light, it's gonna be brighter, even though it's the same exposure. It's gonna appear brighter. So that's why that seems brighter than that, even though they're the same. So you got to keep that in mind when you're lighting people in the angle of your light. With regards to the particular model, how picky are they with the parts of the body? Like, I know that she's got some texture on her arms. How much do you find yourself softening skin and things of that sort? That's a good question. I don't usually. If somebody has an issue like that, I will change the way I'm shooting to minimize it, right? So I'm shooting tethered in capture one, so they see the images. You know, if she looked at her arm and thought that there was, you know, like she didn't like this, what you're talking about, when you say texture, I'm assuming you're talking about these lines here. If she didn't like that, I would just light her differently. I mean, it's easy enough not to show that. It basically comes down to angles. Everything's an angle, you know. So if there's something somebody doesn't want to show, whatever it might be, a tattoo, a scar, whatever, you can just turn the angle of your lights and camera in such a way to minimize that. I would not do it in post unless I had to, and typically I don't get asked to do that because I think that we as photographers need to lighten up there. I think we're making people feel bad about themselves, which is a terrible thing to do, in my opinion. So, you know, people have scars and lines and wrinkles, and it's the natural, you know. So, you know, no, I don't remove it. In fact, this is why you need to be in communication and talking with your subject as you're shooting. And if somebody, let's say, for instance, had that issue, of course, clearly I would change it to make them happy, but I would talk to them about it. I mean, I actually think, I mean, it doesn't bother me. It looks totally normal. It's like, that's what you look like, right? So that's it. You know, I mean, this whole like Snapchat crap with the blown out faces with no detail and overly retouched skin, that doesn't need to happen. That's people putting that on other people. And I feel like it's actually insulting to your subject in a lot of ways. So personally, I don't retouch that out. You know, that's just my personal thought. Yeah. I mean, when you look at it, you know, I feel like that's the thing. You know, whenever the worst thing I hear is all time from photographers, and it's so like, how do you make people look skinnier or make their blah blah? It's like, I mean, yeah, there's definitely flattering / unflattering ways to photograph people, but at the same time, if somebody looks the way they look, that's just what they look like, and you should embrace that and focus on making the best possible picture of your subject you can, and not worry about little imperfections, in my opinion. So there you go. That's me preaching. It's Sunday, so I get to preach. Thanks, Albert. Yeah, exactly. That's just the way it is. I mean, and honestly, I don't get people complaining. I mean, very rarely does somebody come back and say, oh, you can see this thing, because number one, I'm showing it to them, and number two, I think that most people don't actually care as much as photographers think that they care. Now, I am also using a very, very soft light in a very flattering way, so it's not like, you know, it's super apparent what you're pointing out. I mean, you're literally pointing out something that's barely noticeable. If you lit them in a way that really showcased it, you know, that's a little different. In any case, yeah, I've just applied the same settings. Oh, a little GIF action. Boom, 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 boom. She's like, I'm looking at the light. Oh, hey, Daniel. I'm looking at the light. Hey, Daniel. Look at the light. Hey, Daniel. All right, so we'll copy these settings. I'm going to go to the next one. This one actually looks a little dark. I might have adjusted here slightly. The settings are the same. I'm assuming that the light's changing on me. This one looks a little darker to me, so I'm actually going to draw my blacks back a little bit and my midtones this way. So what I'm doing is I'm actually darkening the midtones and lightening the blacks, because I think that's actually going to look better than the way I had it. There we go. And again, that three-dimensionality, you really see by bringing those lights up how much that really shapes the face. And again, I'm just watching to make sure I don't blow out, which I'm not. And yeah, that looks good to me. Okay. Same settings. That looks a little smidge bright, probably because of the angle. I'm actually going to roll back the brights on this one. Make the mids come this way a smidge. Darks back up. I'm not typically a fan of the chin being down too much, but luckily she has a very good shape to her face. A lot of times when you bring somebody's chin down too much away from the light, like their eyes become too dark, right? Because the way that the forehead projects, and obviously your eyes are recessed, right? So, but just because of the shape of her face, you're not really getting that so much. So she can actually handle the chin down better than many. I'm going to recover a little bit on the highlights there to make sure her nose is not blown out. And that looks good to me. Okay. Oh, yeah. I think we started getting weird in this one, which is not in the video. So you're getting something you're going to get where you just started trying weird shit just to see what it would look like. Yeah, I mean, you can say they're the ones paying, but again, in my experience, I am obviously not photographed every single person in the world. Very rarely does somebody ever say to me, I want to look like I have no actual texture and look like a complete fake, drawing, anime drawing or something. Except for Yan. This one model / friend that I have, Yan, she likes to look like she's completely fake. And that's her thing. That's just, she's like a doll. I mean, and that's just what she's into and what she wants. And I still don't retouch her because I just shoot her in a way that blows out all the texture so she looks like she has no texture in her skin. And I can do that in camera. I don't have to do it in retouching. Okay. So I think my overall is dark here. Oh, my exposure jumping all over the place. All right, I'm going to again drag my midtones. I think some of these are kind of fun. I probably would never use them. I remember now that we shot a bunch. Yeah, we shot a whole bunch where we brought our arm up and we tried some different, almost silhouette type shapes. These aren't really the style of shot that I like to do. Typically. But she had this idea to try something, so we did. And actually, you see the next one I did more of silhouette. But I'm still going to do it because a photo shoot is a collaboration, So she was like, "Oh, it would look like if I do this." So try it. Why not? I'm going to lighten this up a little bit. Actually, I'm going to I should say darken it up. Because I almost want this to feel a little silhouette-y because I know that was what we were going for. Yeah, like that. Okay, see, this is silhouette-y, but not enough. Did I go darker than that? No, I guess I tried it and then I was like, eh. Because clearly, I think what I did was I turned off the backlight. The front light, and left only the backlight on. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I'm looking in her eye to see a reflection. So actually what you can see here, by the way, which is kind of interesting, is that if you compare it to, this is obviously with the flash, but this shows you your shadow. Sometimes we say that, right? When you shoot the frame in the beginning of the thing, you're establishing it black so that nothing's in the shadows. You can see that this is the natural light in the room. It's a couple stops dark. So it didn't fully silhouette the way I wanted it to. I would have to have cranked the shutter speed more to fully silhouette it, and if I did that, then the windows would get super dark. So it wasn't going to work without completely changing the way I was lighting. And since that wasn't our plan, I think I just drifted back. Like you see, I only did one shot like that, and then I came back and lit her again. We'll get rid of that. Yeah, because I think the flash is back, but it's turned down. Yeah, I can just barely see it right here in her eye. So I think I just turned it down a couple stops. And let's go back to this one, which I think is a pretty good setup here. I think this is just very flat to me. I'm going to see if I can get a little bit more oomph by bringing my whites of the windows up a bit more. So I'm going to actually really crunch this down to push my dynamic range to a minimum. And then you're going to see that this is actually going to mess a lot with the color. You see how saturated she's becoming? So I'm going to come up and just drop my sat. Yeah. Interesting. See, and what's interesting, I actually like that better, personally, as insofar as the silhouette's concerned, than the other one, which I got rid of, but the other one that was silhouetted that I didn't think has worked as well. All right, we'll keep these settings. Nope, that's no good because she's looking at me. You don't want somebody looking at you in silhouette, her hands cut off. I don't like that. It's kind of interesting. Nope. All right, so that's just not the way to go. Let's see if I can get a better look here. I think ultimately the silhouette idea didn't really work. If you're going to silhouette somebody, you really got to silhouette them. I feel like she's just dark here. And if I bring her up, it just looks weird, unless I can recover the highlights. So again, I feel like, and this is why, it's like we're experimenting. you know, where we were just trying different things. Didn't work. Not everything works. Yeah, you can see I started to bring it back to normal. You can see like that moment of experimentation, and that's kind of like, not really working. Let's see. I tell people I'll retouch stuff that won't be there next week. Yeah, that's a pretty good way to look at it. Huh. Stitches and a bandage on their face. Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. If somebody wants retouching, that's totally fine. But I feel like the idea that we should just immediately start tweaking out every image and removing every imperfection that we think is imperfections is just doing a disservice to our subject. If they ask for it, you know, that's fine. You know, or if it's just something that's very kind of awkward. Like here, this is actually a pretty good example, which is out of focus, so I won't do it. So oh, and actually, see, I fixed it with the pose. Let me go back. Okay, so she leaned forward in this pose, which I liked, and then, of course, screwed up the focus, so it's out of focus, so we're not going to use it. But in doing that, because of the outfit and because she's a human, you can see that this is sticking out a little bit. That's something that I might actually push back in using Photoshop, just because it's not, because the outfit's so tight, it just isn't looking flattering because of the way I posed her. But what I did was, and in fact, I'm not going to save that one because it's out of focus, but all I did was I just moved her arm. And there we go. You know, it's still there, but it's not sticking out because now her arm's blocking it. And that was something you can do while you're shooting, you know? It literally is just looking at the images and knowing what you're doing as you're going, I think is just super important. And that's, I guess, what I mean. Like, almost everything you can fix with just looking through the camera as you're shooting and making it happen. I mean, somebody having a bandage on their face is a whole different world, but that's... All right, so I'm coming back up here. This one's a bit more contrasty. I'm totally losing detail over here, but that's the style I'm going for. So I'm not going to worry about it, trying to recover it, because if I do, if I even could do it, yeah, it'll just start to look really crappy. So I'm either liking that or I'm not, is the way I'm kind of looking at this. This is a bit of a darker mood. There we go. That's good. I like the way that looks. This whole thing seems a smidge on the dark side. So I'm going to, again, because I have my contrast where I like it, so I'm just going to boost the exposure. Wow, I was off on that exposure, that focusing. This happens when you shoot it. Oh yeah, we were all kinds of experimentation, guys. You won't see any of this in the video. Luma range tool and mask it. Yeah, I could, but that's not. I'm still not going to be able to bring it back. There's not enough dynamic range in the camera to do it. I mean, the thing is, whenever I'm gonna do, like, if I'm looking at this, like what you're saying is, yeah, I could just mask this with the Luma range, but the thing is, I could spend time doing that and then find out later it's not going to work because no matter what I do, I mean, I guess if I really drop the exposure, yeah, I guess there's detail there if I really wanted it, but it would look so unnatural, you know. So I'm just not gonna do it. It's just not how I operate. I'm not about getting every single bit of HDR detail and every single pore gone, and it's just not the way I work. I mean, just not what I do. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing that. If that's how you shoot, then that's fine. But I also think that we have to give your client a bit of credit that they don't necessarily want to look like not a real person. Okay, so here we were messing around with gels. I'm not exactly sure why, but these are the things that I do sometimes. I think this is way too underexposed to be able to be worthwhile to save. Also, the white balance is completely whack. Oh, you know what? I think this is the chocolate gel. Yeah, it's definitely the chocolate gel. Yeah, I think it's a chocolate and a CTO is what I was doing to get the windows blue. And I'm going to say it was an unsuccessful yeah, it just looks, that whole making the windows blue, it can work sometimes, but yeah. So Daniel's about to delete a bunch. Yep, nope, no good. Okay, so I gave up on that, clearly, and I went back to something that was a little bit more normal. I think this is just the chocolate gel. Yeah, there we go. Not loving this pose, though. We'll get rid of that one. Okay, so here I've got, I believe, just the chocolate gel on there. I think it's too blue. I don't know why. Sometimes the making the back light blue is interesting and cool. Sometimes it's just gimmicky and doesn't really work. I think if I make it bright, which is what I was kind of planning, yeah, that's better. Although I think my windows are going to start to break up if I do this. Yeah, it's no good. Nope. All right. Yeah, that's funny how that just happened. I looked at one that I actually liked a minute ago, and now I don't like it anymore. All right, that's it, right? Not too many this time. So now another question that I get a lot of, which we'll go into right now, before I go forward, is then like, what do you do next? I'm going to select them all again and hit 4. And I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go 4 stars or greater, and I'll go through one more time. The first time I'm doing my tweaking, the first time I'm being a little bit more careful to make sure I have enough good ones. And now I know I have a bunch of good ones, so I'm just going to be ruthless and just boom, 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 cut them down, because I don't want to overwhelm somebody with pictures that they're not going to necessarily want. Now, there's not that many here, so I'm probably not going to get rid of too many more, but, you know, at this stage, I might have 100 pictures still, so we'll cut through that. All right. I definitely like that shot. That's less liking. I'm just going to hit 3 on the ones that I'm, like, up in the air about. No. I like her hair there, but her no. I like a natural laugh. That one I like. No. Too much in the middle. No. That I like. That I really like. It's very elegant. It's funny. I think I'll probably end up liking more of these than in the first setup. Yeah, these ones I'm liking. It's a little bright. There's better ones like that. No. Didn't love that. No. That I like. I'm going to keep that only because, like I said, we did it. It was her idea and kind of a collaboration to do kind of like a almost silhouette shot. So I want to leave at least one there because otherwise I'm going to send her the pictures and she's going to go, what happened to the silhouette? So, all right. So now I've gotten all 4 stars and I'm down to like less than 20 pictures. So I'm going to select them all. They all look good. I'm going to jump over to here and I'm going to export them. So Models Dropbox is what I'm going to use. This is basically, I'll do another one of these. Maybe this is what I'll do in the middle of the week. I'll do another one of these where I go over how to set this up because I did it once before and now it's gone. So I'll do it and save it so I can put it on YouTube. Basically, I've got everything selected and what I've got here is it's going to export a JPEG at 2,000 pixels and it's going to put it into Dropbox named, well, in a folder named after the session, which of course has her name in there. So I'll be able to then share it with my subject and we'll be good to go. So I'll do that and I'll hit process. And we should be good to go. It'll take about a minute. Let's see if there's any other questions here while we do this. Okay, anything else? Maybe I mean, if somebody wants to see like a really like full kind of retouch, at some point I could take one time and just do that. Like just take an image and go through it and do all that kind of like deeper dive stuff like Luma range and, you know, deeper tools. We could definitely do that part as well. Could be kind of fun. But any other questions kind of floating by as we're kind of, wow, it's fast today, huh? I usually go for almost 2 hours, but I think this time we just did a faster setup. How many images is normal? I mean, I don't think I usually shoot more, or at least, you know, more than like 100, 150 pictures total in a session of, you know, 2 looks, maybe like 50 to 60 pictures per look is maybe what I shoot, but it kind of depends. I mean, there's times, like for instance, this high-speed sync part of it, even though in the end there was a lot of this, like there wasn't much to this, you know? I mean, it's like, that's the shot, right? Like I knew what this is basically the shot. Like this is what I wanted, this is what I imagined, this is what I got, and I got it pretty quickly. If I'm doing something else, like walking down the street, like with somebody, or shooting something in the park, and we're just randomly like looking around, or there's things that can change, like backgrounds, I'll shoot more pictures. I think that like you want to give people enough. Like I never want to give them like 5 pictures, but like, you know, at least 10 in each setup is usually pretty good. So if you shoot anywhere from 20 to 50, you know, or maybe a few more depending. And again, it also depends on the model. Sometimes, especially if I'm really friendly with somebody, we might have a bunch of goofy fun shots in between where we're just like joking and I'm just like shooting and getting like natural, just fun, goofy shots. And those I'll give to them as well, you know. I'll shoot it because I like to and because it's not the shot. In this case, we're trying to produce the shot. And in fact, I believe This is the first shoot that I did when I came back to actually. This is the first live model shoot that I did once coronavirus kicked in. So I was still getting used to the interaction with somebody while wearing a mask, and and we were both kind of extra paranoid, So yeah, I think that we shot fewer than we normally do, I would say. How long does it take to do a full edit? You mean like a retouch? I mean, if I have to spend more than like 10 to 15 minutes on an image, I think it's, unless I have to because it's the only image I have, that's just way too much time. I mean, I like to spend what you just saw there. Like 99% of this is done. But I can take an image that needs something, like, stuff in the background needs to be cut out, or I can or we just show some of the processes, like the luma range. It's one of the reasons why I shoot tethered. I mean, I feel like when I shoot tethered and the subject is there, I'm usually 99.9% there, and very little else do I need to do to the images. So I don't spend a long time, unless I know I'm going to be doing retouching. Like, I think we did some a while back, of course the video is no longer there, where I photographed my friend Norton at her house, where there was like a reflection in the window, and I knew it was there, and I was going to have to deal with it in post, and we actually went through and got rid of the reflection and stuff. So that takes time. Because it was just there. There was nothing I could do about it. To get the light in the way I wanted, there was going to be a reflection. So, let's see. Like I sent a model 10 fully retouched images, and she told me another photographer sent her over 100. Yeah, but were they all retouched is the question. And this is exactly the reason why I don't retouch images and send them out. I think it's just, and again, I am probably a minority here. I think a lot of photographers especially people that are into presets and like this is my style, I do all this weird extra post processing. If that's what you do, then you're stuck doing that. I mean, I pretty much deliver 99.9% raw images to the model. I mean, these are going to her right now as they are, and I doubt that we'll do anything else to them. And I did it while doing a video. If I was just doing these for her, and not explaining it on Twitch, they probably would have taken me 20 minutes max to do what I just did. In fact, maybe less, depending on my mood and how much coffee I'd had that day. But what was I gonna say there? Yeah, if you are setting up the situation where you're giving people fully retouched images, I just think it's a bad policy, because they're always gonna go, like I said about this one, right? I said, oh, I got to give her at least one of these because she's gonna remember we did that. Even though I don't love that image, if I don't give her one from those like 4 or 5 that we shot like that, she's gonna be like, what happened to the? No matter what I give her, I could give her a million awesome pictures, she's gonna remember she didn't get that one. So. I always give the images the way that they are, and again, if it needs retouching, then we'll deal with that after the fact. I would not deliver hour-long retouched images in a small quantity to somebody for a portrait session. I would just never do that. That's just not how I do it. So I recommend changing that if that's what you're doing. You had a session with the model, and after I started editing the pics, I noticed that she had a lot of texture on her face. Well, I would be interested in seeing an example of how shooting a model to diminish that sort of texture. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I guess because I just do it in most sessions that you don't really notice it. But what you want to do to eliminate texture on skin, like basically minimize it, is texture is basically just shadow, right? So the simplest way to say how you get rid of it is you need to make the light, cast the shadow in a way that is not going to be unflattering, right? So if you think about it, there's 2 ways to do it, basically. One is to put all the shadow directly behind the face, so super, super flat light, like, although this is terrible to do this way, but an example of that would be using a ring flash. Even though I would not use a ring flash, it's not flattering for lots of other reasons, that's a whole other thing. Or just putting a very large softbox behind you directly at the person. What you want to do is remove the shadow. All the shadow, no, I shouldn't say remove redirect the shadow. You want to push the shadow so it goes behind them. So any wrinkle they might have doesn't show a shadow. The shadow's back there, it's gone, right? You fill the shadow basically with light. Another way to do that is to use a fill light if you still want to shape the face. So you can use any kind of lighting you're going to use and then fill. That will help. But essentially, that's it. I mean, but I can do something where I specifically show texture and then take it away. That would actually be kind of a fun little video. So maybe I'll do that. But basically, the long and short of it is that you need to make sure that there's less shadow. Less shadow means less texture. Less texture means less wrinkles. So large sources, and of course it's shadow and highlight too. Obviously, bright highlights are going to also show texture. So you want to diffuse light. You say you're using a softbox, but like, how big? What's the angle? Are you using fill? It makes a huge difference. I believe you probably get it right in camera exposure, etc. I mean, I try to. I try to get it right in camera. I mean, the idea with me is like when I'm doing a portrait session. So, just to give you an idea, because I guess you guys don't really see this. Like when we're shooting this, like we would shoot. Well, first of all, I shoot one or two just to make sure the lighting and stuff looks the way I want it to look, and then I show them that, right? And I go, "This is what I'm thinking. You can see the lights over here. We're going to basically have you looking more towards it because that's going to fill in nicely." I explain all this to the subject, and then they'll look at it. And if she looked at this and was like, I mean, it's hard to say because she has such good skin, so whatever. But let's say that she looked at it and she was like, "Oh, I don't know, whatever. There's something." I mean, I don't know what she would say. But let's say I have a pimple here or whatever. Okay, or, I mean, first of all, if they had a pimple right there, unless I had to shoot it this way, I would just turn them the other way. Right? I mean, shoot them from the other direction. I mean, unless you have to shoot them that way. But anyways, you would basically show them one or two so they understand what we're going for. Then we'll shoot a dozen or whatever, and then we sit there and look at them. And right away, like for instance, if there was a problem where like, let's say she looked at these two pictures, and she was like, "Oh, the picture on the left, I think my arm looks better in the left." Well, yeah, it does because it's straight. I mean, when you straighten your arm like that, it's going to look, it's going to add an angle. An angle is going to make the arm seem, thinner, right? So, and also because the light's hitting it, right? It's separating. It's making the overall. When you squint at this, right, you mostly see this highlight. Whereas when you look at this arm, right, what you're seeing is this is mostly like mid-tone to shadow. So, like if you look at these two next to each other and then squint, you will see that the one on the left, the arm looks way thinner, and part of that is just because of the angle of the light that I explained before. This versus this, right? What you get here is that. So if you were trying to avoid the arm looking like heavier, you would just do that, right? It's easy enough to do. And to me, this is fine. It just looks normal. I mean, this is what people's arms look like. But if the subject didn't like that, then you would know, okay, well, we're going to shoot a few more. We're going to make sure we keep that idea going. And if I really love this pose, but I didn't like that, then how would I solve it, right? The simple way is, the reason why the arm is fully lit like this when it's like this, but not fully lit when it's like that, is because the direction of the light is up here, right? The light is coming at an angle. We can see that in our eye, right? You can see how high the light is and the angle that it's at, right? So what I would do is I would flatten the light, right? I would lower the light source and I would put it flat. If the light was flat, then this part of her arm that's closer to the camera would be brighter relative to the back part, and thus you would get that same visual effect of the thinning of the arm. It's just about knowing where your highlights and shadows are. That's why I think, I know that I mention it every time, and maybe that's, I haven't got deeply into it, so I'm doing it right now, is that this is why we work on contrast, right? We want things to be bright to dark, because that, again, helps shape how things look to people. It changes their what they're looking at first. It changes how things look. The angle of it makes a huge difference. So yeah, that's basically it. So again, if you wanted, and now of course if I zoom in, you can see that of course it's probably still, like, this is the same part of the arm, right? We can still see right here, I guess really closely, and right here, you can still see these natural parts of our arm, but they're less evident, and that's because they're being hidden by the light. So the same is true on somebody's face. The thing is that if you're shooting somebody and your idea is to get rid of certain things, like let's say you're trying to hide things, it does limit you, right? You can't look at some really elaborate, super dark, moody light and then go, oh, I'm going to shoot this and it's going to get rid of every wrinkle on somebody's face, because it's not. It's going to amplify that, right? So you need to pick the style of lighting for the subject you're trying to do. And if somebody wants a pretty, beautiful beauty shot and they have wrinkles in their face, because let's say they're older or maybe they've been in the sun a lot, and they point out an image that has this crazy light that they're showing me, then I will tell them, well, that light is going to actually amplify the way that you look, and I would explain that to them, and they'll understand it, and that's it, right? It's a conversation. Wow, I just talked for a long time. Maybe changing it up and sending unretouched images. Yes, that's what I would do. Charging for retouching. I mean, you're not charging for retouching? I mean, I would, yeah. I mean, if the market supports it, I would definitely charge for retouching. Why wouldn't you do that? Assuming, right? I mean, I know, I'm not making a judgment one way or the other. Assuming that you can produce images that don't necessarily need retouching to be good. So my point there being, again, and I'm not making any kind of qualitative statement about anybody, but I will tell you right now that she's going to use all these pictures and she will not want any of them to be retouched. They are fully within the realm of what my subject would use without retouching, meaning they don't have to pay me. It's not like I'm going, well, yeah, it's $500 to have a portrait session with me. And then when I deliver the pictures, I'm like, oh, it's going to be another $500 for retouching though, because man, those pictures look terrible, because you had wrinkles. It's like, you can't do that. I only charge for retouching because most of the time when somebody wants something retouched, it's because it's something silly. I try to avoid having to make things. In fact, I don't even retouch actors' headshots. I tell them to go somewhere else to do it because I don't think that you should retouch actors' headshots, and I'm very adamant about that. Plus, anyways, if they go to an actual professional place to get them printed, like reproductions in New York, they're going to want to pay them to retouch them because they're going to want them to color correct them for their printers, and you just let them do it. Like they're expert retouchers. So for me, because I'm not an expert retoucher, I'm a photographer. I don't include retouching, but also 99.999% of the time, they don't need it. Now, if she looked at these pictures and was like, oh man, you know what? I didn't notice, and this thing, like somebody mentioned, this bothers the hell out of me. Well, that's there, and that's my fault, right? I mean, I actually like leaving that. It's just something I do. But if somebody didn't like it, I would just take it out, and I wouldn't charge them for it. I mean, you see, it takes me 4 seconds to do it. So, but if I thought somebody actually cared about that, I would shoot them against a roll of paper, and it would not be a problem. But yeah, I definitely would not spend hours and hours retouching, and also just make it clear, with people how many images they get. It really just depends on your business model. I mean, I'm sure that some people shoot images and make people pay by. In fact, I know that used to be what people did sometimes in New York. I'm not sure anymore because I haven't looked at the competition as it would be for headshots anymore. But there definitely were people that did like portraiture, and they would say included 2 retouched images, and that was just part of their kit. So you can do that too. It's like, well, you get all the images not retouched, and you get X number retouched if that's something you feel like you need to do. It really comes down to whether or not. In other words, I wouldn't say it's like going to a burger joint and ordering the hamburger, and for $5, and then when you order it, they're like, "Oh, would you also like that to be cooked?" And then you're like, "Well, yeah, of course. Okay, well, that's an extra $5." Like, I wouldn't do that. So if you're not delivering a finished product, i.e., I said i.e. and people actually say i.e. when there's as in, it's not good enough, not retouched, then I would not charge extra for retouching, I guess is my point. Yeah, that was a really roundabout way to say that. Oh my God! If you're shooting model tests and you think that it's too much work and it's frustrating for they don't appreciate you, do not do actors' headshots. Actors are the absolute worst. And I love actors, but they're the worst. Like, they just, every little tiny thing. It's like, yeah, actors, oh my God, they're the worst. Models are much more open. But I think part of it comes down to communication during, we'll say before, during, and after the shoot. Like, when somebody walks away from a session with me, they are happy. I mean, I don't let them leave unless they're happy. Like, if they look at the pictures, they're like, oh. Then I'm like, what's wrong? What do you want? And I will spend extra time. This is why I never, and I'm not, again, people can do what they want, but I don't like charge by the hour. I've seen people do that where it's like, oh, model shoot, 2 hours. I don't do that. If you book me to shoot your modeling shots, I mean, I always say half a day, because nobody ever has the energy to go longer than that. They all think they do. They all bring 100 outfits. They collapse after 3 outfits because it's exhausting to properly shoot. Anyways, yeah, you got to make sure people are happy when you're shooting them. I mean, if they walk away happy, then it shouldn't be an issue later on. So I recommend shooting tethered if you're not doing that, and making sure that you are discussing with the models, even going so far as to being like, pick some that you like. That way you're putting them on the spot, and because maybe they're shy and they don't want to say it in the spot. They're like, oh, I don't want to insult you or whatever. Have them pick, or pick with them. That'd be my advice there. It's but actors are, oh my god, actors are the worst. Gotta run. Okay, good seeing you. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you guys logging in and checking it out. I'm going to actually take off as well, too, and this was awesome. If you don't, let me switch back to my camera. Oh, there I am. I have a thing where you can see my stuff, but yeah, if you don't follow me on other platforms and you just found me here, then please do. I do a lot more videos on YouTube, and for people that are watching this and want to come back to it later, I've been rebroadcasting them like a week later, so on Saturdays. So if you came in late or you didn't watch the whole thing on Twitch, or you missed it, or you want to see it again, you remember this one, I'll put it up probably next Saturday so you guys can see. Feel free to send me messages and ask me stuff that you want to see in videos, because I'm always looking to do videos about content. It's always important, and I'll do one that's more retouchy. I'll do that. Yeah, I'll find an image that I'll really want to retouch, and we'll do that. We'll get deeper into it, because I'm sure that I can find an image where it's completely like off the rails bad, and we can probably try to fix it as best as we can and see how that works. I don't guarantee that it'll be perfect in the end, but I think that it's bad. So yeah, guys, have a great week. And also, if again on this Tuesday on Adorama TV, you will see the one with that we did at the end here with the high-speed sync. So if you want to see how that all worked out, and I'm going to try something new this week. I think you'll be the first to know about it. Where on Tuesday night, I think I'm going to do a quick live stream on my YouTube to answer the questions that people put on the videos on Adorama TV. So if you watch this video this Tuesday and you put a question there, I'll still answer you as quickly, but I'm going to try to answer some of them in more with a lot more words live on Tuesday night on my YouTube channel. So look for that, guys, and yeah, let me know if it's something else you want to see, and I will see you next time.